reports from the responding NHRI, 52 were fully aware of the existence of this agreement, which is an improvement compared to 7% when we conducted the previous survey.
Technicians, please assist us to display the presentation on the big screen. Thank you.
In terms of the knowledge, the implementation, of course, 7% commercial indicators, they're not aware of their countries having developed national strategy implementation. 33% of NHRI indicated that they have participated in various workshops and stakeholder forums discussing the implementation. In terms of participation of NHRI in outreach, 85% of NHRIs indicate that they have not participated in any sensitization outreach with national coordinating committees, which so that NHRIs were not involved in the discussion. In terms of convening outreach initiatives, 87% of NHRIs indicate that they have not convened outreach awareness or capacity building initiatives in specific organizations, while 22% detailed to have organized awareness raising forum in partnership with CSO. In terms of complaints received related to the African Community area, 71% of NHRIs reported that they have not received complaints specifically linked to trading under the agreement. 52% indicate that they have received complaints, though they don't know whether these complaints are directly related to the agreement, while 7% indicated that they received complaints with labor and land and pollution complaints, especially barriers to NHRI engagement. The challenges, which 59% of NHRI strongly express that network communication of the National Coordinating Committee is a challenge. 7% strongly agree that limited awareness is the barrier, of course. While 40% agree that 41% strongly agree that the role of various stakeholders is not clear, so they don't know what role is played. Regional mechanism, 50% of NHRIs indicate that they have some level of engagement with the African Commission. This is when we organize a forum which discuss the agreement. And for information, the African Commission adopted a resolution on this. 78% indicate not to have engagement with the Secretariat of the Secretariat. I don't know whether it's an experience in the profession. 52%, 67% the African Court, 50% the committee, indicating that they were not engaging in the economy. Focal points on DHR. Of course, this question was sent to focal point for on DHR within NHRI. They are the one who will got it, and then who responded, showing that there is link between the agreement and DHR issues. So by way of recommendation, of course, we recommended that the promotion, the communication of the agreement, the regional level, former country exchange between HRIs and the National Unity Committee to include the adoption of the best practices. There is need for capacity building at national level, targeting relevant policymakers to decide on the NHRI is to be formally recognized as key stakeholder in the membership of national negotiation committees for policy advisory. The Secretariat of AFCA and the National Committee need to formalize their working relationship with the NHRI, the Western Commission, in the development of national regional monitoring evaluation system. NHRIs need to more proactively encouraging on their mandate, foster collaboration and partnership with national trade committees, broaden the participation of independent actors such as NHF, Nanhri, suicide and academia in the district settlement mechanism for increasing the legitimacy. And finally, the adoption of the AU business human rights policy framework that we are still waiting as a key in providing guidance in due diligence process to decide the handle of community and report human rights impact of various communities on human rights. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weber, for sticking to the time allocated. I really appreciate the presentation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we all aware, the idea of the policy forum is to engage or to have an engagement between the National Human Rights Commissions at the national level through the Secretariat, through the network, with members of the PRC. And the idea is to try to consolidate positions, political support and positions behind the National Human Rights Commission in order for them to be able to deliver on their mandates at the national level. Last year's theme of the year was on CFTA, and that is why we are quite hopeful that a representative of CFTA will be with us this afternoon, but unfortunately we were not able to secure the participation of the Secretary of the Continental Free Trade Agreement to be with us. We have seen on the screen and we have heard from the Executive Director of Nanhri Secretariat the issues, the challenges that were discussed during the forum, and also the recommendations on the way forward. Now we will try to go into more depth with our panelists. The only thing that I would like them to pledge their support to my leadership, if possible, and not to really undertake any coup d'etat against me by sticking to the time allocated. And that will be about 5 minutes, not about but 5 minutes each, so that we can have a bit of time for conversation and for discussion. Our first panelist will be Mr. Eric Mokutu Kiri, and that is the acting Executive Secretary of Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission. Mr. Eric, you have the floor, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Yes, and thanks to Global for being invited to this discussion. Some of the highlights of the speak to the Zimbabwean context. So, the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, why should we get the very structure where we are implementing the commitments in the dialogue? There was some progress in some of the aspects of the implementation at the local level. Of course, we started mostly by engaging on capacity strengthening of the Zimbabwean institutions, so especially highlighted. We drew our reference to the assessment done by the subcommittee on accreditation, for family, for disabilities, While this is because of the status, the accreditation, the observations that need the attention, and therefore we engage the government with regards to those observations, in particular the issue of adequate resources and the establishment of the commission. Suffice to say, through those engagements, we made some good progress. Operating from mainly one head office about 3, 4 years ago. Now we have offices in 6 provinces out of the 12, 4 of which are now properly established. So that capacity was made a difference to us in terms of accessibility, receiving complaints, but also in terms of the stakeholder engagement, it's a more local level. So we are encouraged by that progress. And the engagements with regards to national development programs were related to national development strategies. There was a reference to the African Continental of Free Trade Agreement during some of the discussions that informed national strategy in Zimbabwe, where the Commission contributed ideas from that. We included issues to do with decentralization and integration of services and the city to ensure that marginalized communities were also consulted to participate in development priorities. The Commission also monitored issues to do with the progress at national level that relates to agreements that the country has made and engage the government, particularly on the commitment to develop the national action plan on business and human rights. We held a number of meetings to develop such a national action plan. We have not made satisfactory progress, but at least we have created a platform, especially through our message of human rights and also our message of community rights, where there's a commission with representation, lead this discussion, as relevant government departments also come up with, and issues of free trade are also discussed, not just free trade, but also free movement of in residents of different people. The related development was that uh, the government of Zimbabwe actually ratified what exactly it's a development related to this, but it's ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of All Migrants in terms of their movement of justice. So the thing is connected to this in the sense that it is a notable step facilitating free movement and movement of persons and the enabler to promoting free trade. Uh, Learning from experiences like this one, we think we need to continue engaging, especially bring on board civil society organizations. We started working with a number of civil society organizations to increase the lobbying and advocacy and the voice on business and human rights and issues to do with fair trade and free trade between the region and the continent. We think learning from experiences that we and in terms of the review of our efforts and commitments, we could have done better if we done a deliberate effort to come up with a roadmap to monitor the implementation of the commitments. Because a lot more of these commitments did not receive adequate attention from the commission, and there was no deliberate platform where we discussed what the government of Zimbabwe has done. It was rather ad hoc, and learning from this, we need a more monitoring through the commission. So I would say those are the experiences, and we are also keen to we can learn from the experience from other institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Eric, for a very precise presentation and also for sticking to the time allocated. We really appreciate it. You have touched on capacity building issues as well as progress made at the national level, and of course the need to have the business and human rights policy at the national level that could also implement the policy that is yet to be adopted at the EU level. Of course, still there are some questions about Zimbabwe's commitment to ratify the African Union uh, treaties related to free movement of persons, the African Union passport, and other related uh, treaties and instruments. Thank you so very much once again. And now I would like to move to Ms. Providence Yumo- Yumurungi, Yumurungi, the chairperson of the National Commission for Human Rights of the Republic of Rwanda. You have the floor. 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Distinguished participants from Protocol as well. Thank you for this opportunity to share the practice of the implementation level. Of course, I start by saying that as we all agree, recognize that the trade and human rights are implicitly linked. So the implementation of the CFTA provides opportunity to address human rights and inclusive development across the country. As you know, we are privileged to have the signature of the agreement together in 2018. The program that was in the room, I was in the room, you can see that Africa has opened up their own start working together. But after 7 years now, maybe in the rest of the NHRIs, and seeing what they have done after the last policy dialogue, and the survey that Mr. Victor presented, we still also have a long way to go. But I will start by saying that in terms of Rwanda, Rwanda was among the first eight countries, including Tanzania, Kenya, Cameroon, Ghana, Egypt, Tunisia, and Mauritius, that participated in the initial pilot phase to actualize trading under the CFTA under the Guided Trade Initiative with its first export of tea and coffee to Ghana. That number has increased now as of December 2024 up to 31 state members now that are part of this Guided Trade Initiative. Six CFTA certificates of origin have been issued, which enable Rwanda to export about more than about 1,500 kilograms of value added goods such as tea, coffee, and chili for last year. And also there are some new air freight rates that have been negotiated in partnership with one year. The next year, preferential air freight cargo rates that reduced from 1.8 to 1.4 kilograms, which helps for the bank exports that's being offered to maybe the Rwanda products. Of course, the implementation is the national implementation committee is in place. It has been active since 2020. That national implementation committee brings together government and private sectors. But of course, it's when we were just responding to the survey, we asked ourselves why we are not part of this national implementation committee. But what I can say here, we have now a commissioner and the two staff of the commissioner are dedicated to business and human rights. And she get in touch immediately with the Minister of Trade, and which means that the commission is going to be part of the meetings of the new national implementation committee that will be because they need quarterly for better coordination. And also the national SPA strategy is also in place. And also Rwanda has signed the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. That's at the level of the country that the Commission tries to follow up and monitor the implementation of the agreement itself. Our role as the National Commission for Human Rights, at the beginning, I can say we started being active when we were just when we were asking also the survey, but we realized that we have contributed to at some extent. We conduct an assessment of the human rights and business, the respect of human rights in the informal sectors, agriculture, mostly in tea, plantation, and coffee, and also in construction and transport. And we have an MOU with the private sector foundation, federation. So we exchanged the outcomes from the assessment. We conducted two workshops for the owners of those business companies, mostly because we're also discussing on the due diligence and also mostly the tea and the coffee that we export more, but also because there was also the idea that the European Union also has revised their guidelines. So the Commission did that capacity building for the owners of the companies, but also did the capacity building for our own commissioners and staff regarding which was within business and human rights. And then we also, the Commission contributed in, we submitted the draft now, we have the draft of the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. We drafted, we collected with the Minister of Justice, but we submitted to the Attorney General's office so it can be combined with the actual National Action Plan in general of human rights that we have not published. It's available for validation and being approved by the cabinet, but for us, the Commission has done. I think this is very clear and I call upon our colleagues. I think in Africa it's only so far by December. I think it's only four countries that have this national action plan on business and human rights. It's only Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Nigeria. And I think also if you want to be more proactive on the issue of the business and human rights, it indirectly contribute to the implementation of the CFTA. Call upon things are also to encourage our governments to have this action plan. Maybe to conclude, encouraging the fellows to formalize and to complete this national action plan. Also, within the framework of awareness and capacity building, I said we organized this two workshops for companies, but also we need, I said we will be doing the follow-up so we can be included in the National Implementation Committee. Of course, the challenges, I think what we have seen in Africa in general, the implementation of the CFTA is going on different parts depending on the countries. We are not on the same path, and that's why also to see the result, the outcomes is still challenging. And the main challenge also is this impending is the free movement of goods and people, even the persons. If we still have on our within our continent, where if I am coming from Rwanda, where the borders open, you can get the visa at the airport, and as long as you're not in. But when I have to go to another country, I have to pay 250 for visa, or within the same continent, and how these goods and the people can move free, how this are going to make this CFTA reality. It's a good platform, but also in our law as any challenge, this is also clear. This issue of free movement and the freedom and movement of people and goods to encourage the government, those who are not ratified these protocols of African Union to facilitate the outcome of the SCFTA. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Madam Ordinance, for this very comprehensive presentation. Indeed, advancing human rights to the trade is part and parcel of the African Union norms and standards. Indeed, there is really need to focus more on the promotion and ratification of EU instruments that are allowing for the free movement of persons. Goods can naturally move alone. A truck cannot ride itself. A plane cannot fly itself. So there's really need for having a free movement of persons to complement the free movement of goods. I heard that Rwanda is intensively exporting tea, coffee, and chili, and the whole chili is like kabanga, which is something I love. And please, if you haven't tried a kabanga before, this is not a publicity advertisement session, but a kabanga is a very unique chili that makes you eat more and stay healthy. Thank you so very much, Madam President. And now we move to Mr. Anthony Ojoku. And Mr. Anthony Ojoku is the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission of Nigeria. Your Excellency, you have 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As a follow-up to the agreements of the sixth forum, the National Human Rights Commission of Nigeria um, identified that for the smooth implementation of the African Free Continental Trade Area, the issue of free movement of goods and services are key. So we are collaborating with government to deal with issues of ease of doing business, and we're approaching this by having a kind of um, for importation issues, a one-stop center for dealing with issues getting to importation, and then removal of multiple taxes. We're also working with immigration to train border officials so that they can assume human rights into border issues because of the free movement of persons and goods. Um, and have been quite cooperative in this. So we are also working with the government partners and other government agencies to build the capacity of immigration officials to understand that migration is not an offense, uh, because you find out that in some of our African countries, if you violate the migration rules, you are arrested and things like that. So that shouldn't be the case, you know. So we're trying because, like has been pointed out, if there's going to be movement of goods and services, we have to look at our laws that that deal with migration issues and then not criminalize migration in Africa. Because if you cannot move freely in Africa, then the issue of realizing the Africa is not going to be possible. Nigeria is one of the countries that has adopted the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. Um, we've gone far, in fact, I think we're a top country in Africa. Actually, we have also established a national working group on business and human rights. We're also establishing state working groups on business and human rights. Just before I came here, we just had a national dialogue on business and human rights, which is supposed to mainstream human rights into business operations. And the idea is that businesses should be ethical, should be sustainable, and should respect human dignity. It's not all about making profit. For business to be sustainable, we are dealing with businesses to understand they have to be ethical. And we are also working with businesses to adopt common indices for due diligence for dealing with issues of due diligence out through their value chain, because for people for ease of doing business, if people coming to do business with the corporate entities in Nigeria are faced with different due diligence compliance regulations, it will be quite confusing. So we're working with the NNPC, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, to set up a standard due diligence procedure, sustainability procedures, so that companies that are coming to do business in Nigeria will not be confused. And we're also mentioning climate issues into the after implementation. Where we just finished the regional conference on climate, climate change, and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which we invited other countries in Africa and other NHRIs to also participate in this so that we can find common grounds that will not affect businesses that are coming to do business in Nigeria. And also the issue of resilience and emergency planning. We're working with the National Emergency Agency in Nigeria to develop a framework that will have put into consideration during emergencies, concerns for asylum seekers, migrants, refugees, and possibly displaced persons. Because since migration is going to be a major issue, we must build in resilience, we must build in emergency considerations of other Africans who come into Nigeria in case there are emergency situations. And we have also, formed collaborations. We have a natural CSO forum now. We have a natural sea donor forum. We have a natural sea military dialogue forum, and we have a natural sea CSO police dialogue. And all these are aimed at sensitizing all these institutions as to the role they have to play to make sure that non-Nigerians who come into Nigeria and who have to be involved in trade, movement of commerce, and human beings are treated in line with best practices we have also appointed a focal person on business and human rights, which is located in the office of the executive secretary. And these are some of the initiatives we are taking to make sure that the implementation of that is smooth in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Anthony, for this presentation. You have really raised a very important issue related to migrants and migration policies and laws. But also, I think we need, while we are discussing later, to touch on the fate of the Africans that are going to be or already being returned in numbers, big numbers from Europe and from the US. I think now with the current administration in the US, we have seen a huge number of refugees from Africa coming back. So what future and what fate is awaiting them coming back to Africa? And now we listen to Professor James Kobila. He's the chairperson of the Cameroon Human Rights Commission, and he will be addressing us also in 5 minutes. You have the floor, sir.
Merci de me céder la parole. Étant le dernier intervenant, il me semble opportun de rebattre les cartes pour relancer le jeu. L'exercice auquel on se livre rentre dans la présentation des résultats de l'analyse des engagements pris par les institutions nationales des droits de l'homme lors du 6e forum de dialogue politique. Commission de l'Union africaine qui s'est déroulée il y a 2 ans. Au cours de ce forum, 11 engagements ont été pris par les CNDH, numérotés de A à K. Ce sont des engagements d'exécution permanente. Et ce que nous sommes invités à faire constitue par conséquent une sorte de rapport d'étape 2 ans après le 6e forum. Alors, la Commission des droits de l'homme du Cameroun, il faut bien le préciser, n'a pas un mandat spécifique en matière de commerce, mais il est bien entendu qu'elle peut faire beaucoup de choses dans le cadre de son mandat général et de la thématique des entreprises et des droits de l'homme, mais aussi de la protection des droits des catégories vulnérables. J'avoue que concernant la Commission des droits de l'homme du Cameroun, la mise en œuvre des 11 engagements des INDH n'a pas été faite à 100%. Sur les 11 engagements, la Commission des droits de l'homme du Cameroun a mis en œuvre la majorité, 6. D'abord, le point A. Par rapport au point A, à l'engagement correspondant à la lettre A, la Commission des droits de l'homme du Cameroun a engagé des plaidoyers adressés à la présidence de la République pour le respect du quota de genre de 30% dans la composition de la Commission et pour le respect de la transparence dans la désignation des membres de la Commission. Concernant le point B, la lettre B, qui est relative à la promotion de la libre circulation des personnes, l'Institution nationale des droits de l'homme du Cameroun a assuré le suivi des cas d'expulsion de Camerounais de la Guinée équatoriale sur le fondement de la compétence personnelle de l'État, parce que l'État dispose d'une compétence qui lui permet d'intervenir chaque fois que l'un de ses citoyens se trouve en difficulté. Et sur la base de cette compétence personnelle de l'État, l'INDH étant une institution étatique, nous avons écrit aux autorités guinéennes par voie diplomatique. Et le ministère des Relations extérieures du Cameroun a transmis la lettre à ce qui fait office d'institution nationale des droits de l'homme en Guinée équatoriale, ce qui a provoqué une demande d'audience de l'ambassadeur de Guinée équatoriale au Cameroun. Et nous l'avons reçu, il nous a présenté la situation en nous disant qu'il y avait des mesures, que des institutions avaient été suspendues pendant 3 mois en attendant pour permettre aux gens de se remettre en règle. Et à l'échéance de 3 mois, nous avons sollicité l'audience et nous avons été reçus par l'ambassadeur pour assurer le suivi et voir les mesures qui avaient suivi. Nous avons mené des enquêtes de terrain. Nos campagnes de la région du Sud est descendue sur le terrain, à la frontière entre la Guinée équatoriale et le Cameroun, et nous avons recueilli des informations qui nous ont fort heureusement permis de démentir des informations alarmistes sur la maltraitance des Camerounais qui circulaient dans les réseaux sociaux. S'agissant de la lettre G, que nous avons également mise en œuvre à travers une déclaration que nous avons publiée en 2023 à l'occasion de la journée de la femme africaine, qui a été célébrée le 31 juillet 2023 sur le thème révélateur, le savoir-faire et le potentiel des femmes pour la consolidation de la paix en vue de l'accélération de la mise en œuvre de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine. Donc, dans cette déclaration, nous avons exprimé notre préoccupation sur la persistance du commerce informel transfrontalier avec les pays de l'Afrique, qui se traduit par la participation limitée des femmes à la définition de la politique commerciale, qui suggère que de nombreux services produits au niveau national échappent au mécanisme de suivi qui pourrait assurer leur structuration, leur suivi et leur développement durable. Nous avons formulé une série de recommandations spécifiques. Dans cette déclaration, en tout, 7 paragraphes sont consacrés à la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine. S'agissant de la lettre I, relative à la libre circulation des personnes, en plus on se réfère à ce qui a été dit sur la Guinée équatoriale, parce que là, c'est une question de libre circulation aussi. C'est une question de libre circulation, parce que l'ambassadeur de Guinée équatoriale que nous avons reçu a attiré notre attention sur un point qui nous a semblé pertinent. Il a dit, bon voilà, les textes de la communauté économique et monétaire de l'Afrique centrale prévoient la libre circulation pour tout, qui permet à tout citoyen de se rendre dans un autre pays pendant 3 mois. Mais la Guinée équatoriale exige que le citoyen qui se rend le citoyen communautaire qui se rend en Guinée équatoriale soit nanti d'un passeport. Parce que c'est sur le passeport qu'on peut apposer le cachet qui permet de savoir quand il est arrivé et quand il est sorti. Or, s'il circule uniquement avec la carte d'identité nationale, on ne peut pas apposer le cachet sur la carte d'identité, on ne peut pas vérifier sa carte d'arrivée, sa carte de sortie. S'agissant du point J, relatif à nous avons fait une déclaration à l'occasion de la Journée internationale de l'environnement et nous le faisons chaque année depuis 2021. Donc, le 5 juin, nous célébrons la Journée internationale de l'environnement en produisant une déclaration substantielle qui constitue en réalité une étude thématique assortie de recommandations qui est adressée aux autorités et à tous les acteurs pertinents. S'agissant du point K, la participation, le dernier point que nous avons mis en œuvre, au moins partiellement, nous avons participé en 2023 au forum des CNDH que le RINAD a organisé à Banjul avant la session de la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme sur la thématique de l'entreprise des droits de l'homme, avec un fort accent sur la ZICA. Bon, maintenant, il nous reste à mettre en œuvre les points C, D, E et F et H. Le point C relève davantage d'ailleurs du RINAD, parce qu'il faut bien le dire, plus du RINAD que des CNDH. Et le point D, l'INDH Oui, le gouvernement n'a pas consulté l'INPH pour la question du plan stratégique, mais nous sommes en train de travailler pour intégrer les groupes pertinents, les groupes de mise en œuvre, les groupes de travail technique. S'agissant du point E, nous allons entreprendre des démarches pour le mettre en œuvre.
Excellency,
Yes.
could you kindly try to wrap up?
Oui, je conclue avec les deux points qui restent. Alors, le point F concerne le plaidoyer qui sera fait pour la vulgarisation de la CECAF en langue maternelle, parce que jusqu'à présent, ce plaidoyer n'a pas encore été fait en langue maternelle. Nous avons encouragé l'État à le faire et nous allons l'accompagner, puisque nous avons une expérience dans la traduction des instruments des droits de l'homme en langue maternelle. Nous l'avons fait avec la déclaration universelle des droits de l'homme que nous avons traduit en 6 langues maternelles du Cameroun. Mais je termine avec le point H qui concerne le plaidoyer pour la ratification du protocole sur la libre circulation des personnes que nous allons également mener.
Merci. Thank you very much. Last but not least, we will listen to Madame Amina Bouaya, the chairperson of the National Human Rights Council of Morocco, in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur l'ambassadeur. Donc, je tiens tout d'abord à féliciter les organisateurs pour la tenue de cette réflexion politique. Et évidemment, lors du 6e forum, une ambition s'est affirmée, en tout cas pour nous, celle de consolider le rôle des institutions nationales dans la promotion et la protection des droits fondamentaux sur ce continent. Ça, c'est très important dans une déclaration commune. Des engagements donc ont été pris. Les orientations stratégiques ont été esquissées, avec une volonté claire, faire des IDH et des accords importants. Aujourd'hui, l'heure est à l'évaluation après 2 ans, une évaluation lucide, sans complaisance, d'ailleurs, ce que nous avons demandé. Donc, quelques questions. Quel progrès réalisé par les IDH pour elles-mêmes? Le deuxième, quel obstacle demeure? Et surtout, comment mieux orienter les efforts? Je me limiterai à 3 volets par rapport aux enjeux et je dirais la place des IDH dans cet espace. Premièrement, c'est que plusieurs IDH ont pu retrouver le statut conformément au principe de vie. D'autres ont renforcé leur indépendance. D'autres aussi ont revu leur procédure interne. La transparence de leur fonctionnement. Donc, c'est un élément important de pouvoir se pencher sur l'accord de Zurich. Le deuxième, c'est sur le plan régional, c'est la participation des IDH au processus de l'Union africaine, c'est affirmé. Et ça, c'est important donc, de pouvoir institutionnaliser cette participation, pas uniquement pour le commerce, mais d'autres aussi, d'autres sujets comme l'observation des élections, la gouvernance, la migration et bien évidemment les élus. Donc, ça, c'est, à mon avis, important dans ce processus d'évaluation de cette déclaration. Le deuxième, c'est aussi dans cet espace je dirais, de débat sur les entreprises et le commerce, il y a aussi d'autres sujets qui sont émergents et qui se sont imposés aux IDH, tels que le changement climatique, les droits numériques, l'intelligence artificielle. Donc, ce sont des éléments qui nous interpellent dans l'évaluation de cette mise en œuvre et l'évaluation de cette évaluation. Donc, mais sûrement, il y a aussi d'autres progrès depuis le 6e forum. Donc, à cet effet, j'aimerais partager avec vous un certain nombre, je dirais, d'actions initiées portées par le CNDH dans cet environnement de rôle des institutions nationales. Premièrement, c'est nous partageons régulièrement nos expériences avec nos collègues d'Afrique à travers des échanges techniques, des actions de monitoring, des immersions pratiques dans une logique de co-apprentissage et de co-construction, comme un groupe homogène qui agit sur le terrain. Le deuxième, effectivement aussi, nous agissons collectivement pour renforcer les capacités des mécanismes nationaux de prévention de la torture. Un élément peut-être pas très loin de, 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 de cela. Donc, en juin, par exemple, en juin 23, il y a l'initiative du CNDH Maroc et de South Africa Human Rights Commission. Nous avons lancé le réseau africain des humanitaires établi à Khartoum et la troisième conférence se tiendra à Cap-Verde lors de la journée internationale de lutte contre la torture en juin prochain. Nous devrons aussi renforcer la coopération entre les IDH africaines et les organes des Nations Unies. En avril dernier, par exemple, à Rabat, à l'initiative du Comité des Nations Unies pour la protection des droits des migrants et leurs familles, le groupe de travail de RINAC sur la migration présidé par le CNDH Maroc et les 5 sous-régions, un mémorandum a été signé par le président de notre comité pour agir pour la protection des personnes en migration. Bien évidemment, le CNDH poursuit activement son plaidoyer pour la ratification par le Royaume du Maroc de la Charte africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples. Un dialogue constant est entretenu avec la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme. Plusieurs de ces commissaires, d'ailleurs, participent régulièrement à nos activités et pour qui nous organisons des rencontres et des réunions avec les responsables parlementaires, avec les ONG marocaines, avec les universités, de manière à expliquer, à nous appuyer dans notre action de plaidoyer pour la ratification de la Charte africaine. Mais aussi, nous avons, je pense que dans ce processus d'action au niveau national et au niveau régional et international, nous avons encore besoin des alliances stratégiques des IDH de l'Afrique de manière à élargir le cercle de nos partenaires d'action, aussi bien dans le pays que au sein de l'Union africaine. Donc, tout de suite une idée, c'est que reconnaître les IDH en tant qu'acteurs clés des débats émergents, y compris business and c'est un débat émergent pour plusieurs de nos continents, avec d'autres questions émergentes, doit prendre part aux concertations publiques, officielles, institutionnelles, de manière à ce qu'ils puissent assurer, garantir l'inclusion effective de tous les acteurs, y compris la population ou le groupe humain. Donc, je tiens à saluer à cet effet le rôle de RINAB en tant que plateforme de mutualisation de toutes ces actions au sein de l'Afrique et aussi dans son engagement pour les nouvelles questions émergentes pour les droits. Merci surtout.
Thank you very much, Madame, for this presentation. Now you have only about 7 or 8, 9 minutes, unless of course we receive a donation from the next session. Otherwise, we will stick to the time allocated and we will take a few questions. Please, once you take the floor, there is no need for more presentations. We have already listened to all of these impressive presentations. So do it the African way. Dive to the question immediately or the comment, and within a minute and a half, so then we can have as many as we can. The floor is open. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Just maybe not a question, but just a contribution that the concern for movement of goods, we pick it up also in my country, my office, and what we initiated is just to dispatch the investigation team to the borders to to see because they were complaining about long delays of trucks, spending days at border posts. And we investigated all the major border posts to see what the challenges there. And we made some recommendations. So we'll share the report with the direct director in Nanhri.
Thank you so very much, Nanhri. Madagascar.
Merci. Moi, je voudrais essayer de recueillir l'avis des panélistes en ce qui concerne le revirement des relations commerciales entre certains pays d'Afrique et les États-Unis suite à ces décisions de taxation. Puisque, si je prends le cas de Madagascar, il y a des entreprises franches spécialisées dans la production de vêtements comme textiles qui ont donc acquis cette possibilité d'exporter aux États-Unis en moins de frais. Et actuellement, la situation est devenue aléatoire. Et là, si on parle de ces cas, quelle serait donc la stratégie adoptée que nous devrions mettre en œuvre au sein du RINA et des îles de l'Union africaine? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Bélier.
Thank you. There is once you speak out, maybe I'm correctly in our times, but I have two points. First one, we spoke about the freedom, free movement. I think also we request the international, the national institutions to make a balance between the national requirements and the continental considerations, because this is a very important issue. Unless we go to imply the approach that we gradually make this balance between the national laws and the content necessary. The second issue is regarding the outcome for the second forum. We know that the ASCP directly to the private sector, and there's many instruments under the ACT. So how can the national make this balance between the international laws? Because it's represent, you know that the national institutions is represent the country, and whatever the country assumed what represent the country in a conference or a meeting, whatever. So can the human rights institutions engage with the legal instrument under the framework of ECT? Because we know this is to represent the private sector, not the government.
Thank you so much, Libya, Tanzania.
Thank you, moderator, for giving me this opportunity also to contribute to this session. Mine is not a question, but I would like just to add that Tanzania also, our national human rights institution, has already prepared an action plan for business and human rights, and we are waiting to launch it and submit it to the government, ready for the government processes to make it a business plan in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Zambia followed by Rwanda, please.
Good afternoon. I wanted to find out from Nigeria what challenges, if any, that they faced in developing the national action plan, and after it was developed, what challenges, if any, do you face in implementing the plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Rwanda.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you for the. I would like to thank the presenters for this insightful presentation. Mine is a suggestion, as we have, or the presenters raised this issue of the free movement of goods and the people. So just need to make a little bit reflection of the initiative of this the protocol of free movement and protocol of goods. When it started, we believe that there are two things can go together because the two are intertwined. So as you said, you can't move ahead without having one leg and another behind. And as example, now we have 32 country member states signing the protocol of free movement. Only four have been ratified. So, and this is where the issue of human rights comes in, because normally the country or member state decide to sign a protocol because they see there is no any problem on that protocol. But when it becomes to issue of ratification, now we have four member states. I think is here we can document or suggest a recommendation for the respective national human rights to make the respective member states to speed up the ratification because this is the right of people. And you know that safety is in adverse state. And we can't make any things without having free movement. So that is my humble suggestion to be included in the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. This is the well noted and received recommendation. The colleagues from the Secretary have taken note of it. Indeed, the national human rights institutions can play a very strong role in the advocacy and lobbying for the ratification of this very important issue. Last but not least, Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I have two questions. My first question goes to Gilbert. I just want to find out why the AU action plan has delayed because they are in charge of free continental trade, and they are supposed to give us the prototype for us to follow. But in your presentation, you said it's delayed. Any reason for that? My second question is to Nigeria. Nigeria, when you were developing your action plan, I want to know whether you took into consideration migrants issues in the action plan since you were talking about migrant issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Ghana. Now we'll go back to our time. And let's start from Professor James. You have 1 minute, please, Professor. You have a minute. You would like to say anything before we close? You want to say something in a minute? Please go ahead. You have a minute. Thank you.
Merci de me céder la parole. Je vais rapidement donner quelques éléments de réponse au président de l'Institution nationale des droits de l'homme de Madagascar, qui se demande ce qui a lieu de penser ou de faire par rapport aux mesures prises par le gouvernement des États-Unis, aux mesures douanières, aux tarifs douaniers imposés aux États ou à presque tout à la quasi-totalité des partenaires par les États-Unis. Alors déjà, il faut dire que les États-Unis ne sont pas membres de la CEDEAO et que par rapport à cela, il n'y a pas à s'appuyer sur la CEDEAO pour une quelconque réaction. D'autant qu'il s'agit d'une mesure fondamentalement qui relève de la souveraineté nationale, mais la souveraineté nationale est limitée par les engagements internationaux. C'est pour cette raison que si un pays africain considère que ses droits sont violés, il peut saisir l'organe de règlement des différends de l'Organisation mondiale du commerce. Mais peut-être qu'il serait plus heureux que l'Union africaine avec une stratégie de manière à ce que les nations concertées, voire collectives, à ce sujet, si nécessaire et si juridiquement fondé.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I was asked why the protocol is delaying. I do believe that the protocol is like any other instrument which is discussed with the country. It's about negotiations, and I don't know whether I'm the best person to address this issue. Maybe to be addressed at the Secretariat of the STA. And again, sometimes you can lack information because they don't really engage yourself, your commission. They have requested if you could engage with Secretariat, but it has been unsuccessful. So I think that is the issue also to address at the policy level, at the UN, at the AU level, because if this framework is for Africans, they should engage African actors. So I think that it's a general concern for.
Thank you very much. The, the question, the issue from Libya about amendment of laws, I would think that every, well, my own NHRI has one of our mandates is advising government on laws and advising parliament also on laws and to see whether they need review or whether they have mainstream human rights in it. So what every NHRI in the continent ought to do is to look at their internal laws and see whether they will conflict with the smooth implementation of AFTA. I want to give you an example. In my presentation, I told you about our training of immigration officials. Some of them look at migration across the border issues as offenses over which you arrest people and detain them and so on and so forth. So when you look at your such internal laws and they are not going to facilitate the free movement of goods and services, that means you have to amend them now to align, and you have to advise government for amendment of that. So that's the kind of role NHRI should play there. Then on the issue of Madagascar, it's a trade relationship between African countries and what happens in the case of tariffs of US. For me, the high tariff by US on goods from Africa is an opportunity. Let us trade among ourselves. Let's now increase trade amongst ourselves instead of trading with America. So, for what America has caused, we can lead to boom of, intercontinental trade in Africa. Then Zambia asked about the challenges in green implementation, green the development of Vietnam. Yes, we had challenge in the area of carrying, especially the business community along. So because business like this, what is the need for us? This year new UNDP that's leading the National Action Plan of Business and Human Rights. What are we going to gain from that? Because businesses are used to thinking that it's all about making profit. But we're now saying under the National Action Plan of Business and Human Rights, following from the UNDP, that businesses have to be ethical, businesses have to remain, have to be sustainable, businesses have to respect human dignity and so on and so forth. So we gave them the instance of, for instance, in Niger Delta, where most of the oil companies have been drilling and have violated environmental rights of the people. People can no longer fish, people can no longer farm. This a lot of conflict in the area. And then you can imagine the people will protest and they use their law enforcement on them, and the operation should be shut down for 6 months. Now, what happened again? You have lost so much after all the big investments. You have lost so much if your operations in the oil industry are shut down for 6 months. So we are now telling them that a business plan that respects the rights of the people, carries the people along, is even though you may not make much profit, but the business is sustainable and in the long run it is better for you. So when we try to explain to them, they buy in, then they came along. Then also we had the problem of also had the problem of developing indicators, which performance indicators to help with measurement and evaluation. Because what is not measured doesn't make progress. Then in the implementation, we have had the challenge of capacity building, sensitization because the country is too much, and then mobilization of resources to be able to do that. For Ghana, Ghana asked the question whether we took migration issues into account in our constitution. In developing our national farm plan, it was very, very inclusive. That means we involve all the key sectors. We have a national commission for refugees and internal displaced persons in Nigeria, and they were part of the plan. So what it means is that in business concerns, they have to make provision for employment of migrants. If you are going to deal with disaster issues, you have to make provision for migrants. If you are dealing with remedies and so on and so forth, you have to put in place platform previous mechanisms that can afford them to make complaints, and those complaints can be addressed.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Anthony. Madam Providence, you have a minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just to quick, Olivia, yes, the NHRs can be engaged in these protocols and instruments that you said, what depending maybe on the dates is best as the NHRs have the advocacy role and also to check if the laws or instruments that are signed are in harmony with the human rights obligations. And we think also, Scott, that also if the NHRs can be included among the members of the National Implementation Committees, while all others are discussing on those policies, but even those protocols that are going to be signed, so the NHRI can give it a point of view and also give the legal perspectives on those protocols that are going to be done. For the colleague from Madagascar, from Dr. Labibia, this is more political. Le programme Trump avec les tarifs douaniers, tout ça. Mais je pense que c'est exactement l'occasion, c'est l'opportunité pour nous, les Africains, de faire le commerce entre nous, nous développons nos industries textiles comme ça, et puis au lieu d'exporter ça, pourquoi ne pas le faire et développer les industries entre nous et puis utiliser ça au meilleur prix entre nous, les Africains, c'est aussi une opportunité pour l'accord pour faire avancer nos industries. En savoir une opportunité plutôt qu'une handicap. C'est une façon de changer le mindset, surtout le problème de l'économie internationale, surtout pour l'Europe, pour les États-Unis, qui peuvent changer le
Thank you very much. Yes, taking a lead from my colleague from Namibia, they investigated the issues, what the issues with the delays. And I think in the Zimbabwean context, it would be important for us even to look at these practical issues. We have currently concerns in business around the ease of doing business, where the business is grappling with the challenges in operating. So, as we engage on the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, it is also important for us as a commission to investigate the issues that are arising from these concerns, which are growing louder and louder. Viability, it is now burdensome and difficult to operate business in the Zimbabwean business environment. So that when we then try to engage in the broader sustainability and ethical issues, it is in a specific context. So learn from that and can this to work forward. Thank you.
That's okay. Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, I think it is quite important that we remind ourselves of a few facts. That number one, that we as Africans have a responsibility to actively engage in the implementation of Agenda 2063 so we can build the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. One of the most important elements of this Agenda 2063 is to make sure that the borders are widely open for the African people to move around, to settle in new places and start a new life, so then they can contribute to the building of the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. And for that to happen, this protocol on free movement of persons is quite important And that is why we have taken note of the recommendation made by the delegate from Rwanda that the national human rights commissions at the national level lobby and advocate for the ratification of this very important treaty. But I think the treaty itself will not really be enough. We need to make sure that there are domestication and implementation at the national level to ensure compliance between the national laws and the continental treaties and instruments. In addition to that, the National Human Rights Commission, of course, also have a role to play in facilitating the trade between Africans across the borders. And I think in particular, there is need to really pay attention to the women that are trading across the border. Because in many cases, the rights of women across the border are violated. You would agree with me that despite the very limited time, members of the panelists have done a very good job and they deserve a very loud round of applause. I know that was late and it was heavy, but that doesn't mean that we cannot really get louder applause for our panelists. And I hope you will also agree with me that the moderator deserves also a round of applause. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador Salah, for the excellent moderation. So without further ado, we are going to move to our next session. It's going to be session 3, unpacking the historical, legal, economic, and institutional dimension of preparatory justice in Africa. The session will be moderated by Dr. John Ikubaje, the acting head of Transitional Justice Unit of the Governance and Conflict Prevention Directorate from the Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security of the African Union Commission. So we are going to have expert presentation by Mr. Donald Blair, is invited to the stage, Chief Executive Officer of the Pan-African Lawyer Union, and Excellency Innocent Agent Kio, Ambassador of Tanzania, if he's here, Dr. Robert Eno, Registrar of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Mr. Numalubi Kwinana, Commissioner for South African Human Rights Commission, Mr. Zelalem Eshete, Legal and Policy Director of Ethiopian Civil Society Organization Council, and yeah, Mr. Kofi is not here. Okay, so Dr. John, you have.
Thank you very much. Speakers for now.